Hey, I'm KUNO and I'm unemployed, and that means I have all the time in the world. The weird part though is that I feel like I'm running out of time, and that's why I decided to make some art.
Running out of time, running out of time, running out of time.
Isn't it ironic? I don't have deadlines, I don't have a planned schedule, but I still feel like I don't have enough time. And that mostly happens in everyday situations, like when I'm missing the bus or if I'm in the kitchen and everything needs to be done at the exact same time. And because I wanted to understand this weird contradiction in my life, I decided to turn this feeling into an artwork. But how can we exactly turn this feeling into an artwork? Well, let's go to the lab. First step, define a border for the project. Because we just saw how many situations can fit into that one idea, I don't want to create one single artwork and instead create the image series. For now, let's define like 4 or 5 images that we are gonna create. Second step, define a technique we want to use. Most of my work is either done with photography or 3D renders. For this project, I want to use 3D renders again. The reason for this is that we can create nearly every scene we imagine in 3D, and to be honest, I don't have a big budget for an expensive photo shoot. Third step, define the exact idea we want to visualize. Well, that one we have already done. We want to visualize the feeling of running out of time, and by that show how normal that feeling is in our daily life. And now that it's all set in stone, let's go to the fun part. So the first step of this project was to write down ideas and possible settings that we can build in 3D. Since this is a personal project about my own perception, I intentionally didn't look at any inspiration sources like Pinterest. After a lot of brainstorming, I decided on these 4 ideas. Let's start with the most special one. We find ourselves in an enclosed room, for example a ship or a submarine, and the water level just keeps on rising. I hope none of us had ever experienced something like this before, but for me the water is more a way to show thoughts that aren't physical but that are still stressing me out. Then the second idea is the bus. This is a more direct and relatable scene. Everybody has missed the bus in their life at least once, and in the render we missed the bus by just a few seconds. Then next up we have a scene in the kitchen. While cooking, I often run out of time. Well, that's maybe just because I'm chaotic. But I imagine a scene for the render where just like 10 things are happening at the same time and we somehow have to manage it. Then last but not least, the school. I'm not in school anymore, but I still remember the feeling when you're in an exam and you're one of the few people who are still writing and the teacher is already calling you up for handing in the papers. I remember that feeling pretty vividly and it was pretty stressful, and that's why we make a render out of it. And now that all of the scenes were planned out, I could finally start with the fun part. So I went straight into Blender. The first thing I did in Blender was to create a room for our scene. I did that with a basic plane for the floor and cubes for the walls. After the room was there, I placed the camera. I usually place the camera pretty early in my renders just so I can always see how the final render will look like. Since we are in some sort of submarine or ship thing, we need to add some pipes on the ceiling to make it more authentic. Next, I added the most important thing, the water. For the water, I used a simple node tree that uses a noise texture and a bump node to turn this plane into a water-like texture. To make the whole render look more moody and dark, I added a big cube and applied a volume scatter on it to add fog to the final render. After rendering, I did a basic edit in Photoshop with a camera raw filter to make the colors pop more. And this is our final render. Let's head right into the next render. For the second render, I started once again by creating the scene. I was inspired by big bus stations that you can mostly find at airports or train stations. I also added some volume in this render to make it darker and fit the night setting better. For the bus I used a free 3D model I found on Sketchfab that was created by the artist VRC-IW. Thanks for that. Since the original bus model had a blue color scheme and used Japanese characters, I put the texture map into Photoshop, changed the color to orange and hid a "too late for you" message on the back of the bus. The last step was adding bloom and motion blur to the render and enhance the colors with the camera raw filter. And this is our final render number 2. Quick before we continue, I wanted to inform you that the next videos on this channel are already planned out and on their way. So if you enjoyed this video so far, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next ones. And now let's continue with the renders. Next up is the kitchen render. As always, I started building the environment first. I decided to do a pretty small and cozy kitchen. Next, I added the sky texture to get this beautiful natural sunlight. In case you ask yourself where I've got all these beautiful textures from, well, the answer is the free Blender add-on Polygon. They have great assets and a lot of them are free. You can find the link to the plugin under the video. To make it more realistic, I added some steam and smoke and applied a camera raw filter as always. And here you go, render number 3. And now, last but not least, render number 4. This was actually the most difficult one. For some reason I couldn't really figure out the perspective and setup. All of the renders before were pretty dark and I also tried it for this render, but it just seemed unreasonable to write the exam in such a dark environment. Finally, I decided to work with harsh shadows and use the bright sections of the render to highlight the hourglass, which should emphasize on the time pressure. The model for the teacher is from BlenderKit, a different free asset plugin. Link is in the description. And at the end, the image went into Photoshop. And now that all of the renders are finished, let's take a look. Yeah, and then when I finished all of the renders and I looked at them, I felt like something was missing. I just wasn't happy with them at all. So I put them aside and forgot about the project. But forgetting about the renders didn't make the feeling of running out of time disappear from my life. And every time I felt that feeling once again, it reminded me about the project. I kept thinking about what was missing, and then I got the one idea: adding drawings to our renders. You know, the biggest problem of the renders in this current state was that they were showing situations where we're running out of time, but if you looked at them, you couldn't really feel that directly. By adding drawings who look unfinished and rushed, we can emphasize this feeling. Since all of the renders are in a POV perspective, the best way to do so was by adding drawn arms and hands. That way, the person in each render becomes the feeling itself, visualized as an unfinished drawing. Does this make sense? Well, so far so good. There was only one big problem. I didn't have any clue how to fucking draw. And that's why I came up with the 60 seconds drawing challenge. Okay, how did that work? Let me explain. My plan was to draw the parts we needed in 60 seconds. Then watch a lot of YouTube tutorials to improve, and then try it again in 60 seconds, and hopefully we will see some improvement. And that is how it turned out. Okay guys, I think we are ready to start. I got my 1 minute timer right here, and I got my 5x4 square right here. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, I would definitely start with the arms, something like that. Shading here, then the other thumb, we have 20 seconds left. This was the first drawing I made, and as you can see, I couldn't really use it for our final render because the proportions look kinda off, and to be honest, it also looks like it was drawn by a child. The only thing I could do back then was to improve, and that's what I did. I watched a lot of YouTube tutorials, and besides some inspirational smoking breaks, I focused mainly on drawing hands and arms from different perspectives, so I was ready for the second attempt. And then, after a lot of training, I was finally ready for the second attempt. Okay guys, I think I am ready for attempt number 2. I got my 60 seconds timer right here. Let's head right in. So I made myself a master plan. Okay, and then we have to do the hands pretty quick. Maybe add some bit of like muscles to our forearms, and then the time is already up. Okay, 60 seconds is super quick, but I would definitely go over it with the pen just so we have a better contrast and it's more visible. Well, let's compare the two drawings. I'm super happy how the second one turned out, and I think it's way better than the first one. It looks more realistic and it doesn't look like it was drawn by a child, but it still has that unfinished and rushed look since it had been drawn in only 60 seconds. I repeated the process for the other renders until I was happy, and now it was time to add the drawings to the renders. But how? Let me show you. First, I scanned the drawings to digitalize them. Next, I imported them into Photoshop and changed their color to white so that we could create a good contrast between the rather dark renders and the white drawings. After adjusting the size and perspective of all the drawings, I could finally finish this project with a good conscience. And now enjoy the final images. And I promise you, no more changes. Those are the final ones. Well, those were the final 4 images, and I want to say I'm super happy with how they turned out. And now, what did we learn from the project? Well, I'm still unemployed and I still have all the time in the world, but yet I still feel like I'm running out of time. And you know what? Maybe that's good. If you would have shown me the final images at the start of the project, I probably would have associated them with a bad feeling, but not anymore. The one thing that I really learned from this project is that we need to be aware that these situations where we're running out of time are important too. You know, we have so many moments in our life where we wish we had more time, but if it wasn't for those moments, would we really appreciate the times where we're not running out of time? You know, at the end I can say I think this feeling of running out of time is just part of life, even when you're unemployed. And I think it's good that way, because what makes our time truly valuable is the fact that it's limited. Think about it.